Hello and welcome to the Meet the Parents podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 49 of the Meet the Parents podcast and your regular 30 minutes of parenting-based chat. I'm Tim from Slouching Towards Thatcham, and this week I'm chatting with Amie from Finding Our Feet. Good evening, Amie.
Hello.
So this week we're going to reflect on how our respective daughters have grown up over the past year, and also discuss why Amie has taken the decision to put her blog on hiatus. There's a line from the classic 80s movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off which is particularly true when you have young kids. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look once in a while, you could miss it. As I say, very true with kids. 1 minute a child is a tiny, helpless little babe in arms who can't say a word to you. The next thing you know, they're a stroppy teenager who won't say a word to you. When people tell you that your children's lives fly by in a flash, it's easy to nod silently and think, yeah, right. And yet, it's 100% true. Our eldest, Isaac, is 9 now. He's already almost as tall as his grandmother, and over the past few months you can see the hormones starting to kick in. He may not officially be a teen for another 4 years, but he's well down the road already. But for now, let's talk about your daughter Amie, Little Miss, who turned 3 recently. So how did you celebrate her birthday this year?
We actually had her first ever kind of proper kids' birthday party, which was really fun and just really lovely to see them all enjoying themselves and everything. And yeah, so we had her, she does dance every Saturday morning, so her dance teacher came and did sort of a 30 to 40 minute thing with them, and then they basically just ran wild for about 20 minutes around the village hall. It was utter chaos. Top tip, we had helium balloons all over the hall because we weren't allowed to put up anything on the walls. And honestly, that 20 minutes where they were running riot, they all had a helium balloon, and it was just the most fun I have ever seen anyone had. So next year I'm just filling a room with helium balloons and letting them go.
Yeah, kids love helium balloons, don't they?
It's amazing.
Did you have any input into planning her party?
Obviously, we know the things that she likes, so we gave her a couple of options. She had the choice of pirates, princesses, and superheroes, and she chose a Supergirl party. That was really good fun, and she has a Supergirl dress, so she was so excited that she got to wear that. She kind of had input in that the dance teacher said, let us know let her know a playlist of her favourite songs, and then she'll kind of devise this 30 minutes around her favourite songs. So we kind of partly collated that ourselves and partly just said to her, what songs do you like? And she chose a couple. The majority was probably us, really. We did sort of say, who do you want to invite? And she sort of named about 6 people from nursery. And then we said to nursery, this is the 6 she's named. Is there anyone she's missed? And we ended up with 14 kids. So she'd clearly missed a few.
So what kind of music did she pick from her playlist? Is she still into nursery rhymes, or is she more into pop music now, or a little bit of both?
There was a mix. So she chose the Happy Song by Pharrell Williams, and she wanted Tangled and Moana and Trolls. Then also requested a couple of not really nursery rhymes, but sort of more childish songs, not ones from films and stuff.
Were there any particular ways in which her birthday this year was different to how you celebrated her first and second birthdays?
Yeah, quite different actually. I mean, her first birthday we just did a kind of family lunch at a pub, and we rented out a little room so that all the grandparents could come and be part of her first birthday. And then I did, because I was still off work at that point, I did a sort of little brunchy kind of morning thing with just our 5 or 6 friends from NCT. They kind of came round, and I'd made little cupcakes for the kids, and the parents had coffee, and that was kind of it. But she had no clue. It was her first, I remember her first birthday was the first time she'd ever had cake, and we've got these kind of photos of her, and she's just looking at the cake like, really, this is for me? What have I done that deserves cake? Whereas this time round, she knew what was going on. Since about October, it's been, so it's my uncle's birthday, and then it's Christmas, and then it's daddy's birthday, and then it's mommy's birthday, and then it's auntie's birthday, And then it's my birthday. Like, she knew. And it's been this huge build up for months. So I think that was the biggest change.
There is a moment when everything suddenly clicks and they kind of get the timeline of, that their birthday is upcoming or that Christmas is on its way and so on. And the excitement suddenly then builds up over a number of weeks rather than the day suddenly arriving and it's like, oh, it's my birthday. So what presents did she get this year?
We were sort of boring and we kind of treated her party as her big present from us. So that was kind of from us. And then we just got her some bits and bobs so she had something to open on the day. My parents got her first ever bike, which we're still learning how to ride. And my partner's parents, I've mentioned before, his brother and sister are only 12 and 10, so they have they keep everything. So they turned up and they had what's called a zip box, and basically it's a massive playmat that zips up into the shape of a box so that you can keep the toys inside the playmat. Inside this playmat was just a load of Happyland stuff. I mean, she's got an entire world that spans the whole of the living room floor when it unzips. It's incredible. And this box has the whole town map laid out on the inside of it. And my daughter opened it and just her eyes lit up. It's got cars, it's got a doctor's office, it's got houses, it's got a marketplace. I mean, it's got everything. And they all make noises as well. So you open a little door and it's like the little shop bell goes. And if they sit in the chair inside the little house, the TV makes a noise as though they've turned it on. It's fantastic. And she's played with it for hours ever since. Every weekend it's like, I want to play with Happyland. It's like, okay.
Oh, brilliant. So let's focus now on how much Little Miss has changed over the course of the past year. I mean, so much typically happens in a child's third year, and I'm sure Little Miss is no exception. I know with our kids we saw a massive leap forward during their third years in terms of them developing their individual personalities. So, in what ways has Little Miss's personality grown and developed over the past 12 months?
It's such a big question. I think you're right. I think it's the personality that starts to really shine through. When she was sort of age 1 to 2, we could see the independent streak coming through, and she's always loved books from very young, but that became very, very clear at that age. And obviously a love of music came through from very early on. But it's the specific preferences now that are coming through. So, and I think it's the fact she's got the language to communicate those as well, mean that she's able to actually really make it clear. No, I like that book, but I don't like that book. Well, why? And that's why. And the same with the music. And she's starting to try, she'll sing nursery rhymes now, and she really likes to tell you stories. So she'll open the book and she remembers the story. So she actually says, I pretend to read this time, and she wants to read us the story. That's, I think, what's really changed. It's that kind of reciprocal as well. She wants to give something back, or she wants to do something for you. And so, just proper person, really.
Yeah, it is definitely that individuality, and as you say, those little preferences that start to come out, and you're right, they do reciprocate a lot more. I know speaking to my brother who doesn't have kids, he openly admits that he struggled a little bit with the whole interaction when they were small babies or toddlers, but there was a tipping point that came round about their third birthdays when they became much more interactive and he could communicate with them and actually do things with them rather than worrying about picking them up and hurting them, and he finds it now. It's almost a complete transformation in him as well, because he gets so much reaction from them. As Little Miss has developed that individuality, do you find that she takes off the you or the other half more, or is it a little bit of both?
I think it is a real mix. I mean, we're both very, very stubborn individuals, so I don't think you can claim that comes from either of us, as in it comes from both of us. We both love books and literature and reading. We met doing a literature course at uni, so things like the books, it's hard to say if that comes from either of us, or is it just that she's surrounded by books naturally. Our inclination when she was a baby was to make sure she likes books. Same with films. We both love films. So kind of the things she's really excited by, I think, are things that we are both excited by, and that's potentially either nurture or nature. It could be either. I think the music interest, it'll be interesting to see which way it goes, because we're both interested in music, but my partner is a real music nerd. Like, he's got a real eclectic taste, but he actually really enjoys music, whereas I love doing music. So I played 3 instruments growing up. I had singing lessons. I was a complete musical theatre brat. But actually, I would never just sit and listen to music. I have to be dancing to it or singing along, or kind of, it's a doing thing for me, whereas for him it's much more passive. And I think it'll be really interesting to see which way she goes, because at the moment music is just music for her.
Yeah, it's interesting, and sometimes some of those kind of individual traits and preferences don't come out until much later. And with Cara, who's almost 2 years older than Little Miss, some of those preferences are still developing, and they change over time as well. So, have there been any surprises about any particular aspects of her personality that make you think, where the hell did that come from?
From my perspective, she's very quietly confident in a way that I never was. I've always been a bit of a wrecking ball. I'm just much more extroverted, and I think she's a bit more introverted. So even sort of both us in nursery, and even my mum, who looks after her on a Wednesday, have all noted that she will really stand back and sort of take it all in, suss everything out, and then when she's comfortable and she's kind of got her head round whatever it is that's going on. So, for example, we go to the play park, and she will walk you round the whole of the playground, looking at all the different things, who's playing on what. And then once she's kind of taken that in, she goes, okay, I'm going to go play on this. And usually this is whatever has not got bigger kids on, or is a bit quieter and isn't kind of overrun with children. And she is quite a confident, she's a very sociable child. So I think that's taken me by surprise. She does seem quite, mature is the wrong word at this age, but I can imagine she's going to become quite a mature little girl.
Last question. I mean, are there any other big kind of development milestones that she's passed over the last year, or any other particular big changes that have really occurred over the past 12 months?
Milestones in terms of things that you do, as opposed to sort of big mental shift. We've done potty training. We're still doing potty training. It's the world's longest potty training in the world. She's moved into a big girl bed. Things like getting her first bike and stuff like that. Those all feel quite big things for us, especially the thing with the bed. That really felt like you're definitely a little girl now. You're not a baby anymore. Very recently, we've ever since she was born, I've always danced around the kitchen to music with her. And I think a big thing this was only about 3 weeks ago actually, and we were dancing around to Trolls, and I suddenly just noticed she was actually dancing, like with proper moves, and she was really consciously moving her arms in specific movements and her feet, and she was nodding her head in time to the music. And I think that's the coordination. And like, she's, again, about 3 weeks ago, suddenly actually started drawing people, and they look like people, not just random squiggles on a page. So they have a circle for a head, and then 2 lines coming out of the head for feet, and then she draws the hair and 2 big circles for eyes.
When kids take to dancing, it's one of the cutest things in the world, isn't it? I think I've spoken a few times in the past about how our kids are all massive Strictly geeks. And they take it in turns on a Saturday evening to dance in pairs together. And Cara's like that. She's just, I don't know where she gets her moves from, because they're definitely not from me. I think you've probably heard me describe myself as having all the dancing skills of an arthritic elephant.
Yes, it was a brilliant description.
Cara has proper moves, so yeah, she definitely didn't get them from me. So there you have it. So when we started this podcast just over a year ago, Little Miss was, I think at the time, just on the verge of turning 2. And now here she is, a fully fledged 3-year-old, and talking about her here makes you realise just how quickly she's grown up. She'll be running the world before we know it. Or at least your household. Although I suppose she's probably already doing that, yeah.
I think she already is. She definitely rules the roost.
And speaking of little girls who rule the roost, let's talk now for a bit about our not so little anymore daughter, Cara. She turns 5 in less than a month's time, and it's been quite a year for her already. So we'll talk a bit now about the 5th year in the life of our girl, and I'm going to ask Amie to ask the questions now.
She started school last year, didn't she, in September? How has that gone? That's quite a big change.
Yeah, and you've got all this to look forward to now, haven't you? So this was third time round for us, and starting school is it really is such a big deal as a parent. I mean, they don't know it, but they're basically going to be spending at least the next 11 years of their lives in full-time education. So as a parent, you really want it to go well for them. Yeah, it's a real upheaval. It's a real drastic change in their routine, and you don't want it to be too traumatic. They've got new surroundings, they've got new friends to be made. They have the challenge of transitioning to formal lessons. And I can remember being really worried for Isaac when he started school, even though we kind of knew he'd be fine. And with Toby, we were a little bit less worried. And then with Cara, it was a little bit more, whatever, third one, been there, done that. I think we kind of always knew she'd be okay. She'd been dying to start school for months, and
I suppose because she sees the boys going off all the time, it must be much more of a real concept to her.
Absolutely. Knowing that her brothers were already in school, she had something to really look forward to. She couldn't wait to join them. She'd been listening to them talking about all the stuff that they'd been doing at school, and she was genuinely excited to be leaving nursery and moving up to school. So, I really remember vividly, we walked her down to school together on that first morning, and she just bounded straight into the classroom with barely a look back. And she has settled in really well, as well as we could possibly have hoped, and she's more than holding her own academically. She seems to really enjoy it. In fact, in a lot of ways, I think she's coping better than the boys did at that same point.
That's interesting.
Because one of the most vivid memories I have of the boys' first few months, particularly with Isaac, who can talk for England, is that they would come home at the end of the school day really tired.
I've heard about that.
And neither would be able to tell you much about their days. I mean, Isaac, we'd ask him how his day had been, and the most you could ever get out of him was, fine. But Cara will talk at great length, given half a chance, and we're really lucky. She enjoys it. She's settled in brilliantly, and as a parent, that's one of the biggest reliefs I think you can have in those early years.
Sounds like she's doing really well. With 2 older brothers, have you seen? I mean, you spoke about the individuality a little bit there already, the fact that she's different after school and able to keep going perhaps more than the other 2 could, but do you find that she's developed into a bit more of a tomboy, or is she a bit more of a girly girl? Or
she's a little bit of both, I think. Having had 2 boys, it's been really interesting having a girl who does enjoy doing the girly things. She loves doing her hair, she loves clothes, she loves dressing up. She has a rack in her bedroom full of lots of frilly and flowery dresses that she changes in and out of more frequently than a catwalk model at London Fashion Week. And actually, her mum brought her some new summery dresses at the weekend, and she was all, "Ooh, I like that," and "Oh, that's beautiful." So there is quite a strong kind of girly element to it, but at the same time, she can be quite a tomboy as well, and she's very physical. She's the only one of our kids who shows any kind of sporting aptitude. We were at my parents' house the other week, and we were having a bit of a kickabout in the garden, and guess which child was the one herring about everywhere at top speed, chasing down every ball, and all too happy to barge her brothers off the ball.
Good for her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's one of those things that it's kind of great to see, because we talked a lot in the past about not wanting to get drawn into gender stereotypes, and she just is. She enjoys running around, she enjoys kicking a football around, and it's great. Being the youngest of 3, she has to be quite forceful to make herself heard, although I do suspect she would be just as boisterous and bossy if she was the oldest of our 3 rather than the youngest. But yeah, she's a bit of both, and I really like that. A little bit of the girly girl and a little bit of the tomboy. You
said that she likes to emulate her older brothers. Do you think she's the same or different as them at this age, or is she trying to be kind of like them now, if you see what I'm trying to say? Yeah,
there is a bit of emulation. I just think that the single biggest thing, and I think you kind of mentioned this in reference to Little Miss as well, is that she seems to have been really mature from a very young age, and maybe that's a function of being a girl, maybe it comes from being the youngest of three and having two older siblings to follow. I guess in reality it's probably a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B, but she does have a particularly, how do I say it, forceful personality. And she's definitely not one to take no for an answer. She's obviously going to be a real handful when she gets a little older. Though, to be fair, she's already quite a handful now. And again, maybe it's being a girl, but one thing that definitely sets her apart from the boys is her ability and her willingness to bend others to her will and to manipulate. She's a real master of the art of tactical crying to get her own way. By comparison, even though they're older than her now, the boys just seem so much more innocent by comparison.
What about her favourite games and stuff from the last year? I mean, has anything changed, or is it still Angelina Ballerina? And
yeah, it definitely has changed. I mean, she's never actually been one for toys as such. She's much more about the kind of the dressing up and the role playing, so emulating Angelina. Or as an example, we tried her with Barbie dolls recently, and she did show some initial interest, but she's more about role playing than exploratory play with toys and dolls. And actually, if anything, the boys were much more interested in the Barbie dolls than she was. I think the one thing that really has developed over the last year as her language skills and her cognitive skills have developed is, like her brother, she's developed a real love of board games.
Yes.
Some of the old staples, so like things like Ludo, playing a lot of Monopoly Junior, and most recently a strategy board game called Ticket to Ride.
We love Ticket to Ride.
Which we've just started playing networked together on our iPads. She loves her games, and actually she holds her own pretty well against the boys, but she is a terrible loser, which is something that I think she gets from both her parents.
I was the same. I remember playing Uno when I would have been Cara's age. I remember that was one of the first ones that I really, really loved.
Yep, our kids all love Uno as well.
Is there anything else that she's got a real passion for, or?
And one thing that's really changed over the past year, and actually she has developed a real, maybe passion's not the right word, but something she really enjoys, is that she cracked how to swim last summer. She did it while we were on holiday, and she'd already shown some early signs of being a bit of a water baby, but not that long after her 4th birthday, she was already swimming unaided, and that was a good year or two earlier than either of the boys. And now she loves being in the pool.
I wonder if her cracking it earlier has anything to do with, you said she was a bit more physical than the boys are. She's the one herring around with a ball, and she enjoys dancing and gymnastics. I wonder if that kind of is in that camp, and that might be why.
Yeah, I think she is. I think she's probably physically a little bit stronger than the boys were at the same age. I think they were slightly later to develop that kind of physicality and that kind of strength you need. So again, as with Little Miss over the last year, Cara's changed a lot over the last 11, 12 months or so as well. And I could probably talk about her for hours, but we should probably draw a line under this discussion, at least for now. I mean, suffice to say that it's really fascinating watching how she's continuing to develop, and she's certainly keeping us on our toes. Finally, let's rewind a few weeks. If you follow Amy's blog, Finding Our Feet, you may be aware that she made the decision recently to put the blog on hiatus. So let's just delve a little bit into the reasons behind it and how she feels about her decision 6 weeks later. So your blogging journey, as we've talked about a little bit before, precedes you setting up Finding Our Feet. So talk us through the blogging journey so far.
So I started, I've had blogs in the past before about traveling, about baking and all sorts, but when I was pregnant, I started bumpbabyandme.com. It was more of a personal journal and pregnancy diary for personal reasons more than anything, but obviously because I've blogged before, it was natural to make it a blog. And partly because at the time I was 24, going through an unexpected pregnancy, and I didn't see many other people online or offline in my circumstance. So I thought, well, blow this for a lark, I'll just do it. And then as that progressed, it kind of obviously became less of a personal pregnancy diary as people started to find it, and you don't start blogging unless you want someone to read it. So I started writing a bit more about just general parenthood and relationships, a little bit of lifestyle stuff about traveling with a baby, things like that. And then I'd been going about 18 months, and I'd never really been happy with the name Bump Baby Me. So I basically took 3 months off and I reassessed what I wanted from the blog. I was also going through a whole thing of unemployment at the time because I'd been made redundant on mat leave, and I was going through interviews, and we were kind of debating, do I really try and supercharge the blog and just let's go with this and see how it goes, or do I continue to try and get a sort of more traditional 9 to 5 job that I've always done in marketing? So I rebranded as Finding Our Feet. This was September 2015, and I never really looked back. I decided to continue with my normal career route, but the blog definitely kept me ticking over. In the interim, I had some freelance writing jobs from it. I got some social media community management jobs from it, which obviously ultimately kept my CV ticking over while I was unemployed. But it was also a creative outlet. It was something to do at a point when I felt like I'd lost myself for all various different means. And yeah, I went back to work. It's about 15 months ago now. And to be honest, in that time, the blog has done really well for itself, given that I don't treat it as a revenue stream or anything. It's purely a hobby. It's done far better than I ever anticipated it would when I started it 3.5 years ago from my bedroom in King's Cross after finding out I was pregnant. But yeah, the time had come, I think. So yeah, Finding Our Feet has gone on hiatus.
And it is a difficult balance to find, isn't it? Especially when you're into a new job, you're having to travel a fair bit as well in terms of the commute, and blogging is something that takes up quite a bit of your time, doesn't it? So now that you're kind of 6 weeks into your hiatus, what impact has it had? So how much time would you say it's freed up, and more importantly, what have you been doing with it?
Well, I used to so my commute is about an hour and 10 minutes from leaving my front door to arriving at my office, and I'm on trains for most of that. So I would spend pretty much my entire commute there and back every day, either jotting down notes in a notebook about a blog post outline, photo editing on my iPad, or actually just typing furiously on WordPress on my phone to get a blog post out. Or I'd be scheduling tweets and Facebook updates, or sourcing content from my fellow bloggers that I could post on my Facebook page when I didn't have anything to post. So I commute 4 days out of 5 a week. So that's about 8 hours back in my life that I'm not blogging. It's in the evenings as well. I used to spend probably 2 to 3. When I first started back at work, I was doing maybe 4 nights a week. And by the time I finished blogging in December, it was down to maybe 1 or 2 nights a week. But that was stressful in itself, because if I didn't get a blog post live, I'd be thinking, oh God, I haven't got anything live this week. And that means that, my stats for the month will fall and I won't have something to share on social media. And then the moment will have passed. I was tired after work, and I just kind of wanted to spend time with my partner or do bedtime and not be. I found it was making me a stressy person, because if bedtime took longer than it needed to, that meant then I was late doing dinner if it was my night to cook, which meant that then I had even less time after dinner to get a blog post written. And I am atrocious without my sleep. I mean, parenthood is like my version of hell from that perspective. But, what little sleep I can get, I can't just kind of stay up till 1-2 in the morning and write the way that some people do and then get up for work the next day. I just can't do it. And so something had to give, basically.
So what have you been doing with all the time you've got back now on that daily commute?
So I sleep. I did have a 40-minute sleep on the way home tonight, knowing that I was going to be podcasting tonight. I thought, I'd better have a nap and make sure that I'm on top form for him. This morning, I've read 6 books since Christmas. What are we now? April. And I've read 6 books. That's more books than I have read in total since my daughter was born in the past 3 years. I'm just so enjoying reading again.
Yeah, and I know I've spoken before about how the one thing that's tended to give when I've been devoting time to blogging is reading. I certainly don't read as much as I used to, and you were talking about it just now. Blogging just kind of creeps its way into so many corners of your life, doesn't it? Because if you're not actually writing, you're promoting yourself on social media, you're interacting with others, you're reading, you're thinking of new ideas and jotting down notes. And there are so many things that eat away at your time, and it can be quite difficult to explain to someone who hasn't been involved in blogging. But for many people, blogging is a passion that can become, almost all consuming.
I mean, I wrote on the blog how it is a lifestyle, and it is effectively a lifestyle choice, because we'd go for a walk on a Saturday afternoon, and in the back of my mind it's constantly going round, even if I'm not actually conscious of it, I must get a photo to capture this so that I've got something for social media or for my Thursday photography post that I always do. I mean, I still always have my camera with me, but I'm actually, obviously I don't take photos on the blog of my daughter's face because we don't show her face. Over the past 3 years I've got very good at either arty shots of behind her head or of her wellies and all sorts of things, and now I'm just like, I went to her ballet recital on Saturday. It was her first one, and I was just taking photos and enjoying the moment. And it's times like that that have made me realize I'm so glad I've taken a step back from the blog, because I feel like I'm actually present and I'm not wondering how can I turn this into a piece of content. And that's absolutely not to judge people who blog and that's the way they do it, but for me, given that I was doing it as a hobby, I think it had become too intrusive on my life, and not just mine, my partner's and my daughter's as well.
Yeah, and you've kind of just touched there on a couple of the benefits of having stopped blogging, at least for the moment. So now that you've gone cold turkey for a few weeks, do you find that you're missing it that much, or are you just enjoying embracing the upsides of it?
I do miss it. Cold turkey is a good word. So basically I was ill the week before Christmas, and then it was Christmas, and then we were away on holiday, and I just thought, and then I started my new job, and so it was just like suddenly it had been 4 weeks and I hadn't really, like, I'd been worrying about not getting something live, but to be honest I had so much else going on. And then I thought, do you know what, I'll just get myself sorted in the job, and then I'll start posting again in the new year. Suddenly it was the end of January. I thought, oh God, I haven't posted anything for like 6 weeks. And then suddenly I'd started writing a post saying, I ended up taking an unexpected break. This is why. Now I'm back. And then suddenly realised it had been 3 weeks and I hadn't even managed to finish that one. And I just suddenly thought, it's been like 9 weeks. Do you know what? I might just take a proper break. And I miss the writing, but it took that 9 weeks for me to sort of switch that part of my brain off that was going, is this a piece of content? What's funny about this? Can I turn this into a listicle or whatever? And once I kind of actually said to myself, right, do you know what? I'm going to put the blog on hiatus and make that conscious decision. That's when I kind of started to enjoy it. But I still have those moments where I have a pang of, oh, this would be such a funny piece of content. I really want to go and I miss the writing. So I'm lucky that part of the reason I've decided to go on hiatus is my new job that I started in January. I'm an editor at a parenting website. So that fills the void a bit, but it's not that personalized content. It's not me sharing whatever I'm thinking is funny or on a whim. I have targets now, and I have to meet those targets about the content that I'm producing, and I work in a very specific area of content development, so it's not the same, but it does fill the void a little bit.
Finally, double-edged question to finish with. What would it take to make you restart the blog, or conversely, what would it take to make you decide to stop permanently? I
don't know, in all honesty. I think this is a bit morbid, but basically I started the blog for very personal reasons. It was a really difficult time for us because of the way we fell pregnant and sort of, the difficult conversations that come as part of that. I think I used the blog as a bit of a form of therapy. And I think I said this in my hiatus post, is that actually my confidence took a huge nosedive, not least because of all of that, but then being made redundant, 2 years of unemployment, just going to rejection interview after rejection interview. the blog gave me somewhere to talk to other people where it didn't feel like I was boring anybody, and it didn't feel as though I was the only person with kids. It didn't, it opened up a whole community of people that I had no access to otherwise. Suddenly I knew people who had children, and I've actually made some friends through blogging who I hope that I will remain friends with, even if I'm not part of the blogging community, because they're actually genuinely people that I get on with. And I wouldn't have found them otherwise.
Blogging as self-therapy is something that will chime with a lot of people that have ever had a go at blogging. And and one of the great things about blogs is that it is something that, if you want to come back to it in 3 months or 3 years' time, it's something that's always there for you. You can pick up to a certain extent where you left off, or you can start completely afresh. And, as I've talked about in the past, I've started and stopped various blogs over the years as well. I mean, at one stage I was juggling 4 blogs covering topics as diverse as parenting, TV, and professional cycling. And I was at one stage writing and editing for probably upwards of 20 hours a week on top of a full-time job. Now, I've scaled back since then, and I'm at a point now where I'm more selective about what I write about the kids as they get older. There's also an element where, I've been blogging for 10 years and writing about my kids for more than 8. And while there are always new stories to tell, there aren't as many as there once were. There are certain stock posts that most parent bloggers will work their way through in their first year or two, and I wrote pretty much all of those a long time ago, so it's probably only natural that I should slow down a bit. And I don't think in my case that means I will stop blogging altogether in the foreseeable future, but it does mean that I'm focusing a bit less on the blog now and a bit more on things like like this podcast, where I have a lot more scope to learn, and that's what really excites me. As a wise philosopher once said, just keep swimming. And that's it for another episode of the Meet the Parents podcast. We'll be back after the Easter holidays, but in the meantime, here's where you can find Amie and I online. So, Amie?
I'm on Twitter at Amie Caitlin. That's AmieCaitlin. Instagram at Finding Our Feet, and you can find the blog still at www.findingourfeet.co.uk.
And I'm at Thatcham Dad, and you can find my blog at slouchingtowardsthatcham.com. So you can download this podcast on iTunes and on Android devices, on our website at meettheparentspodcast.com, and via a variety of podcasting apps. If you don't already, do please give us a follow on Twitter at Parents Podcast, and Facebook at facebook.com/meettheparentspodcast. Anyway, thanks for listening, and do please join us again next time. Good night.